Welcome to today's webinar on the Waterloo and Halton Region Seamless Day Early Learning and Childcare Program. My name is Melissa Hilton from the Atkinson Centre, and we're so glad that you could join us for this important conversation. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that we are gathering on the traditional territory of the Wendat, Anishinaabe, and Putin First Nations. We recognize the enduring presence and deep traditional knowledge, laws, and philosophies of the Indigenous peoples with whom we share this land. As we discuss programs designed to support children and families, we do so with respect for Indigenous ways of knowing, being, and caring for young ones. Today, we are here to learn about the Seamless Day model, a truly innovative approach that integrates early learning, childcare, and before and after school care into one cohesive experience for children and families. This model is rooted in the belief that children thrive when their days are predictable, their environments consistent, and the adults who support them work in collaboration. The Seamless Day program creates a bridge between care and education, helping children transition smoothly throughout their day and reducing disruptions that can impact their well-being. It also supports families by simplifying logistics, building strong relationships, and consistent educators, and providing peace of mind that their child is engaged in a nurturing, play-based learning environment throughout the day. We are fortunate today to be joined hopefully by two speakers. I'm not sure, I can't see if Scott has yet joined. No, hopefully two speakers. I'll start by introducing Scott in the event that he's able to join. He's the Superintendent of Education at the Halton District School Board. He has spent 30 years in education as a teacher, principal, and superintendent. He played a key role in the rollout of full-day kindergarten in Ontario and led early years programming in multiple school boards. Recipient of Canada's Outstanding Principal Award, he continues to advocate for quality early learning. And Melissa Hilton, a registered early childhood educator with a Bachelor of Social Work and Master of Education. She currently serves as the Extended Day Program Manager at the Waterloo Region District School Board, where she plays a key leadership role in the development and implementation of high-quality inclusive programs for children and families across the region. With a deep commitment to child-centered practice and over 2 decades of experience in the early years and education sectors, Melissa brings both passion and expertise to her work. She is a strong advocate for collaboration between educators, schools, and families, and has been instrumental in supporting the rollout of Seamless Day model in Waterloo. And I'll now pass the floor off to Melissa.
Thank you, Amy. So I'm happy to participate today in this webinar and share my experience here in Waterloo. I was hired by the school board in 2010 by Scott. I see he's on the call. Hi, Scott. Thanks for joining us. And I was the first DECE supervisor that would support the implementation of full-day kindergarten. Here in Ontario, we were implementing full-day learning for 4- and 5-year-olds through a phased-in approach that would roll out over 4 years. And so this was a brand new position with the school board to support the implementation of kindergarten, but also before and after school programs. And Scott and our senior leadership team collected some data on which schools had access to childcare services and which schools did not. And that data showed us that less than 9% of our students had access to childcare services in schools. And schools that offered programs were mostly in high-earning communities with long waiting lists. And so our senior team met with our local consolidated municipal service manager to analyze the findings and decided that our families deserved better. And we didn't want neighborhoods to predict which families had access to services and which didn't. And so early on, there was a commitment, I would say, from our senior team to say, you know, we want to have access for all families in every school. And so we started with a small pilot in a handful of schools. We focused on neighborhoods that never had access to care and were historically underserved. And we worked closely with our CMSM, who supported us every step along the way in terms of funding, and helping us build policies and procedures. And we implemented before and after school care for a small number of schools, and slowly over time, the program has grown and grown. Today, we offer programs in 75 schools supporting over 4,000 children. And our programs are inclusive so that children with special needs can participate in the same way that they participate in school. So we have the same EAs, the same plans of care, equipment, spaces that are used, so that children experience a seamless day in a familiar environment with familiar educators, which we know is so important. So our programs have grown, and today all of our elementary schools offer before and after school care. And our programs are subsidized through the region of Waterloo. So we do have a service agreement with them to offer fee assistance for families. In 2022, the province of Ontario signed on to the Canada-wide Early Learning Childcare Funding Plan, and we were very excited to see that, so that childcare would be more affordable for families. But we quickly learned that in order to qualify for CWELC, we had to be licensed. And so we received approval from trustees in April of 2022 to license our before and after school programs, which formerly operated under the Education Act. And we opened our doors in September as a licensed childcare provider. And so we have made childcare more accessible here in Waterloo, and through the CWELC funding plan, we've also made it more affordable. So I'll just maybe pause there. Amis, do we want to take questions or at the end?
It's really up to you, Melissa. If anyone has any questions, you're welcome to ask now, or we can wait until the end. No questions have come in yet.
Okay. So there's a couple of, I think, unique and critical pieces that made this pilot successful. And I would say partnerships is one of the strongest points. We have a long-standing partnership with our CMSM here in Waterloo Region, and they have a service system plan for children and families that identifies access as a key barrier for families in this region. And so they were very supportive of us early on taking on this new program, and really walked alongside us throughout this whole implementation. And once we started with a small number of schools, the program quickly grew. And so today we operate in some schools with over 100 children, and we're able to offer camp programs as well, and full day programs on PD days. And we still collaborate frequently with our CMSM, and they've been really supportive of us through the licensing process as well. The Ministry of Education has also been supportive of us piloting this program, and then over the years as our program has grown. The ministry amended the Education Act in 2017 to explicitly state that school boards must provide before and after school programs, either directly operated or through third-party providers. And I think that whenever the legislation can support this work, it also is critical in helping to move things along. So those were important pieces for us, for sure. And then through the licensing process, we were one of the first school boards to go through licensing. And so the ministry's licensing branch was very supportive. They amended some of the guidelines so that we could apply them to school boards, because there hadn't been a school board license program before. So just being flexible and working with school boards so that they can implement this work, I think that's really critical.
Melissa, there is a couple questions coming in. One is, can you speak a little bit about the actual structure of the program? And what's your staffing model for the before and after school program are the two questions. And then after that, Carrie, I'll come to you.
So because we were hiring this new work group of early childhood educators to implement full day kindergarten, we saw a unique opportunity to adjust their shifts slightly so that some of them would start earlier than the school bell and offer before care, and others would end a little later and offer after school care. So we actually used the DECEs, the designated early childhood educators who work in full day kindergarten, to deliver our before and after school programs. And so each section of before and after school care can support up to 26 children. It operates out of a fully equipped kindergarten classroom, and we have two DECE positions. One works 7 a.m. to or 6:45 a.m. to 2:15 and the program starts at 7. And the other shift is 10:45 to 6:15, and the program operates until 6 for families. So they do have 15 minutes before their shift or 15 minutes at the end of their shift to work on some of those administrative pieces like printing attendance or program planning or updating their parent bulletins or working on their documentation. So that's the structure of the program. The DECs lead the program. And then we do have a second staff position, and that's an educational assistant. They're often working in the school already and know the children and know the environment, and that's the second staff position. That position, we set the hours as term hours, and they can end with 2 weeks notice, and it's really based on enrollment.
And then the teacher is in the core part of the day.
The kindergarten teacher works in the core portion of the day, delivering the kindergarten program.
Okay, and could you speak a little bit about Waterloo taking over programs that weren't able to continue, and also how the city might collect the funding from parents?
So we've seen a trend over the last 7 years with third-party providers declaring their before and after school, their school age programs non-viable. I think partly because of the shortage of ECEs across the province, they're using those educators to expand infant, toddler, preschool spaces and closing down the school age programs. And so every year in January, we reach out to our third-party providers that run purpose-built childcare centers attached to schools for 0 to 4-year-olds, and ask them if they're interested in offering before and after care. And each year we're seeing more and more providers coming back and telling us that they won't be running before and after care. And when that happens, the school board will step in and run the program at that location. So this year we took over 6 schools that were previously run by a third-party provider, and supporting just over 700 children, and we're running those programs now.
Great. And I do have another question, which I think every time we have a conversation about the seamless day, we definitely get this topic that we talk about is, did you face challenges or concerns about occupying the classroom before and after, where the kindergarten teachers were concerned about giving up their space or their classroom to share in terms of planning, resources, etc.?
So I think our consultants and superintendents did a great job at really centering the decisions that we make around what's best for children in our care, what's best for the children in our schools, and seeing the space as belonging to children and family in the community. And so the Ministry of Ontario has published some resources that we use frequently that support shared use of materials, shared use of classroom space for school and childcare programs. And so whenever we have new administrators coming into schools, I spend time with them at the beginning of the school year, and we work through the agreements that we have. We work through those ministry resources just to create a shared vision of using the space to best support children. As part of our fee that we charge families, there's also funds that go back to the school to replenish play materials. And I think that that's Also, one of the advantages of offering the program in schools is that the school does receive funds to replenish classroom materials, and they often involve the classroom teacher in making those decisions in terms of which resources to purchase.
Okay. A lot of questions are coming in, which is fantastic. There's two that are related, so I'll maybe ask them at the same time. I know that unique to Waterloo is your arrangement with the city on fee collection. How do you collect fees from parents? And related to that is how much are parents paying per day?
So we have a service agreement with the region of Waterloo for families receiving fee assistance. But we invoice families directly. We have a team here in our finance that issues the invoices for families and collects those payments. And it's just the fee assistance that we receive from the region, as well as funding that we receive through CWELC. We receive all of our funding through the region as well. Currently, our fees for 6 to 12-year-olds are $31.50 a day. So that's for before and after school care. We do anticipate our rates going up a little bit in the fall, just because of staffing increases through ratified agreements. But yeah, the before and after rate is $31.50.
Okay. And in addition to the full day kindergarten rooms, those that are, as you mentioned, stepping back from school age programs, what do those programs outside of FDK look like in the school? So outside of that age group, who is facilitating those programs?
So we have 24 elementary schools that have purpose-built childcare centers attached to them. They offer infant, toddler, preschool programs. And those programs operate in licensed childcare centers that are purpose-built, and they're built, with strictly for the purpose of the childcare program that's run there. And then the before and after school programs always operate out of fully equipped kindergarten rooms. Even if they're run by third-party providers, they operate out of the school kindergarten rooms.
Okay. Great, thank you. Those are all the questions for now. If you want to continue, Melissa.
So all of our programs also access shared space, such as libraries, gyms, school playgrounds. And so I think that's a benefit as well, that we can access all of those spaces. And many of our purpose-built childcare programs also bring the preschoolers over to visit on the school side, because they may be future students and they might come over and visit the libraries and spend some time also visiting the school side. So over the years, we've developed strong partnerships with our childcare providers. They have extensive experience, knowledge, and skills. They've been operating licensed programs for years, and licensing is new for us as a school board. And so we certainly leaned on them through this process to learn from them and ensure that we could implement some of those best practices.
There's no questions coming in at this time. So I don't know if you want to continue or if Scott wants to jump in and give us some of your experience.
Hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm happy to jump in. Thanks, Melissa. She did a great job summarizing everything. I think the biggest thing for us when we started out in Waterloo to do this, and I've done it subsequently in the Halton District School Board, is just getting to more schools offering the program to more kids. Every single school that we started operating in was already deemed not viable, but it was a false demand of of what truly the community wanted or needed. And so I think one thing we're able to do is prove that every school, virtually every school, is viable, and all parents really want and need these services. And that's kind of what drove us. Knowing that, and we felt just through the size of a school board, we could afford to look at economies of scale, especially early on when starting. And it's hard for smaller not-for-profits to take that systemic view. And we had many smaller operatives that simply couldn't risk going into a community with no history of a program, or seemingly, economically marginalized community. And so we could do that, and we could take that on, and by balancing out bigger historically proven sites that could operate, and even it out over some of the other sites. And that was the logic. It was tough to sell that, but that's what's borne out. Now we can speak with 15 years of confidence, and we've seen that. At the time, it was a very difficult implementation piece. And I think the other thing I think that's borne out is that, in terms of an employment matter, school boards were desirable for ECEs to work for, or early childhood educators. It was a new group for us, but it paid significantly higher wage than our third-party operators that offered pension benefits, paid sick leave, all of these things that the ECE profession had been fighting and advocating for years, and suddenly it was there. And so we had a really hiring advantage. And the biggest part of that advantage was we got rid of what they call the split shift. And if it's a third-party operator running in our school, they were trying to hire at a lower wage without benefits to work a few hours in the morning, to go home and come back and work a few hours after school. And that's a really hard, in a very competitive ECE job market, that's almost impossible. And we still have many third-party operators and many school boards still trying to do that across Ontario. And it's mission impossible these days to do that. And that's why we see programs and operators folding. And what happens in the program that Melissa's running now, you're offering a 7.5-hour paid day all at once, because of the blending of the kindergarten and the before school component of the day, or the kindergarten and the after school portion of the day. So, and just structurally getting rid of the split shift and offering full-time work with enhanced wages, it's just more and better positions for our ECEs. And that, again, was, it seems very common sense, but at the time it was a difficult sell out there to sell this Charles Pascal model and to actually act and implement on it. But it's just been borne out again and again. In my recent history in the Halton District School Board, we found just that providers can no longer offer they're calling up us. They were calling me as a early years superintendent and saying, we can't do it. We have to walk away from the site. We simply cannot hire anyone. And so we made a strategic decision to, as a school board now, step in and operate and adopt what I kind of rolled out in Waterloo to now adopt in Halton. And I know many more other boards are looking at it as well, just because it's just a more bulletproof, stronger, seamless model for delivery. It just offers so many advantages. It addresses space concerns, resource concerns, all of the things Melissa said. It takes care of. You offer a good central supports. We have supply deployment systems already in base. We have human resources departments already in place that can get in behind and support these programs. So the architecture of a school board is well positioned to expand and absorb this and run it. And Melissa and her team do that every day. And what's crucial, and what we had to do from day one, is to buffer the principal from some of these demands. They have their plates full already. The program kind of runs under their auspices in a school. They're in charge of everything really in a school. But Melissa, everything's delegated. The authorities can be delegated to Melissa and her team of supervisors. And again, a school board can build that and structure that in place. So that it isn't one more thing that, a school principal is in no way, they host these programs, but they're not finding supply people at, 6:30 in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning. And so offering those supports for principals really got them on board, and just talking to them over time, they really see these programs as an enhancement for their school. I mean, if a school has it and the school down the road does not have it, parents will flat out choose the school with a before and after school program running. It's that important, you know, it is a school choice piece, a parental choice. It's going to win the day. So
I have a few questions coming in, Scott.
Sure.
One is you've spoken about the work environment, wages, and work conditions of ECEs working with the Seamless Day. How difficult is it for you to recruit ECEs? We are seeing an ECE workforce crisis in Ontario, shortages of ECEs. We are also seeing across some other provinces and territories. How difficult is it for you to hire? And then how do you handle the summer months are the two main questions, and we have a few others coming in.
Absolutely. I'm going to pass off. Melissa has more practical experience in terms of the hiring. It's tough. My recent history it's tough, but if anyone stands a chance to hire them, it's the school board. Someone not choosing boards generally really has a desire to work with infants and toddlers, right? It could just be at that point a really personal, but just from you know, a buffet of employment, we find still ECEs were a choice employer, a school board. So from that perspective, we have the best shot. However, we also struggle with getting viable supply lists and enough and to meet demand enough for our before and after school programs really for the first time. I mean, the CWALC, the $10 a day programs priced for 5-year-olds has really spiked that demand. So I think we'd hit some critical masses where we thought things were okay. But then there's been a new level of affordability and a new drive for accessibility for parents. And that's added a recent stress for us. So it's a challenge. I'll just pass off to Melissa and let her jump in because I'm sure she deals with this every day.
So hiring is under my portfolio, and we've had to make some changes over the years. I would agree that more recently there's been more challenges where we've posted positions and had no applicants, and we have to post again, and then we have applicants. We're still able to fill the positions that we need to, but we have moved to an open posting for our occasional staff so that we're just hiring every month. The posting remains open, and as soon as we have 10 applicants, we're doing interviews. I also go to all the job fairs. I was at the local job fair for our community college 2 weeks ago, and we've adjusted to do interviews online, and we have our QR codes out at all the job fairs, and the students scan the code, and we're just doing interviews within days. So we've adjusted our practices to be more innovative, to make sure that our postings remain open at all times, that we're out at the job fairs promoting programs. Each year we onboard between 75 and 100 DECEs, and monthly about 10 to 12 supply hires. So we're constantly replenishing our occasional pool because those folks are moving into LTOs, they're moving into full-time work. So
and what about the summer? How does the summer operate?
So all of our DECEs are 10-month contracts, and that school year is part of the collective agreement. So we've had a hard time selling summer programs. We've been bringing it up each year. I know Ottawa District School Board is offering summer camps, but we are not currently. It's something that definitely I would like to see in the future. We know families need care in the summer. For us, one of the barriers is the collective agreement and the work year that's defined in the collective agreement as September to June.
Okay. I have a few questions coming in. You spoke, Melissa, about licensing. Is there a challenge getting kindergarten rooms licensed, or has it now been kind of something that is seamless? Pardon the pun. Is it seamless for you? Is one question, and then I'll get into another question around funding.
So when we learned that in order to opt into the CWALC funding plan, we had to be licensed, I'm not going to lie, my team and I, we were feeling anxious about the hoops we would have to jump through in order to achieve this. But in reality, our experience was very positive, and it was easy to license the programs. We started our license applications in May, and by August, all 75 locations were licensed. So we did have to set up a licensing account in CCLS, and we had to develop some policies and procedures that the ministry had to review. But they were wonderful partners to work with and really flexible with us in terms of, giving us extensions on timelines. Right away, we reached out to our local public health unit, and they worked with us through this process as well to make sure that we were in compliance with all the public health regulations. So I think just having those meetings early on and setting a timeline for yourself, we were able to achieve it in a few months. And now operating as a licensed program, there's so many advantages. I would advocate that the licensing guidelines are important. They ensure children are safe. They're there for a reason. And, we probably always should have been operating as a licensed program so that we are meeting those regulations and meeting those standards.
Great. A question here is around the seamless day cost recovery at the $31.50 before and after school. Do you receive base operating funding from the region or the ministry, and are the costs higher on a full day, example in service, is the question.
So our funding template looks a little different for school boards than for childcare operators. So we don't receive base operating funding. But we do receive funding annually from the region to recover any losses. And we don't charge an increased fee for full day camps. So families pay a flat fee of $14.50, and that covers winter break, March break, or PD day camps.
Okay. In terms of the kindergarten RECs, are they also with the 6 to 12 before and after school? How does the supervisor model work across the system? You mentioned the way the program is one educator coming in the morning until 2:30. The question is, does that mean that at one point there are 3 educators in the room, or is that time a release for planning time, etc.?
So yes, in the classrooms that operate extended day, we do have a 3-staff model, an AM DECE that overlaps with that PM shift, the DECE. And so one of the advantages is there's time during the middle of the day where there are 3 educators. Now, lunch times do occur during that time as well as breaks, but it is a really great benefit to having extra educators in the room to support children in the core day kindergarten program. And what was this other portion of your question, Denise? It was around
if there was an opportunity for release time for planning, etc. So are they actually actively working, or is that a time where one can have an opportunity for planning time?
So we don't have planning time built into our collective agreements at this time. So there is not scheduled time that occurs formally. However, there is time when children are picked up. For example, many of our programs, all of the children are picked up by 5:30. And so that PM shift that finishes at 6:15, they have 45 minutes at the end of the day where they can work on program planning, administrative pieces of the role. And the same with the morning. We've got many sites where children don't come until 7:30. And so that AM position has time in the morning before children arrive.
Okay, and did transforming the spaces to meet licensing standards require significant investment? I mean, you said it was pretty quick, so wondering.
So all of our kindergarten rooms were renovated at the time we implemented full day kindergarten, or most of them, I think, Scott. We installed washrooms and really invested a lot of money into the space. And so when licensing came in, the space met the criteria. We didn't have to do any types of renovations to our space. We really just had to submit an application and upload floor plans, upload our policies and procedures, make sure that we had information posted on our parent bulletins. And then we go through annual inspections, and we've received positive feedback from the program advisors at licensing that they've noted during our annual inspections just the strong relationships that educators have with children and families, being familiar. There's low staff turnover for all the reasons that Scott talked about. And so it's something that shines through in our licensing inspection reports, is those strong educator-child relationships.
Thank you. And how competitive are your wages and benefits for those working in seamless day program with you or versus other ELCC programs? And are you unionized? Are the staff unionized?
Yeah, so all of our positions are unionized through ECFO, the DECE local. And so they're unionized positions with benefits, as Scott mentioned, all 35 hours a week, no part-time positions, no split shifts. Our grid is comparable to the childcare grid for RECEs with the wage enhancement. So our DECEs earn anywhere from $26 to $34 an hour. And so that would be in line with what RECEs are making in childcare with wage enhancement or similar. And with paid, sick time and lots of opportunities for professional development. We have 7 PD days in a school year where that's, paid time for professional learning for them. So lots of benefits. There was a question, I think, around the structure of my team and how we're supporting this work with licensing. And as Scott mentioned, being the designates for principals during before and after school hours. And so my team reports out of head office at the school board here. And we have 2 schedulers. One starts at 5 a.m. and one works until 8 p.m. And they're constantly monitoring absences that are being reported across the system because we have 450 DECEs that work in programs. And so they are constantly looking at absences and making sure that those absences are covered. We also have a team of 25 fail-to-fill itinerants. Those are occasional staff that have moved into an LTO contract. So they work every day. They're guaranteed work 5 days a week, all school year, but they're deployed an hour before their shift start time. They never know which school they're working at. So that team's really critical in ensuring that programs remain open and that all those absences are covered. And then we've got 10 supervisors, and they work in teams, an AM supervisor and a PM supervisor. And the supervisor position is responsible for licensing. They're the designate in charge for any on-site emergencies that happen, late pickups, injuries, any reporting to the ministry, all of those requirements. And so their shifts match the staff shifts. So the AM supervisors, they start early in the morning at 6:30 and they work till 3. And so half their shift is in program, going out to before school programs, auditing the licensing binders, coaching staff, following up with parents. And then they come into the Ed Center and the other half of their day is administrative work. And the same with those PM supervisors. They start their day here at 10 and then they head out to after school programs at 2:30 and they visit all of their programs throughout the month. So that's how we have structured the team. And I feel like we've found the sweet spot in terms of program support and administrative work for them. So
I'll just jump in and say, I think the supervisors are a nice quality piece too. They monitor certainly the quality. It's important to have a good supervision piece in place. So I've seen that myself, where the supervisors can come in and just ensure program quality is there. It's a nice piece for that. A principal may not be as comfortable, but Melissa's supervisors are wonderful at that. And they also, on those 7 PD days, take a real program leadership lens. The ECEs out in the field really look to the supervisors for their expertise. And so there's a nice, I think quality is easy to not discuss and operational details can trump it. But I think the hallmark of the Waterloo programs is they're a good quality program, and they get good parental buzz out there around that as well.
Thank you. So Melissa, you talked about PD. Do you offer joint PD of the ECs and the teachers that are in the room, like a joint opportunity to work together during professional learning?
So we do offer joint PD through Learning Support Services. We have kindergarten consultants that will plan PD where teams are released to attend together. And we have one this year. It's a 3-part series where DECEs are released with their kindergarten teaching partners for 3 different days of learning. I think they're focusing on literacy and Acadience training. And then we have the designated PD days, which most of those days are spoken for with mandatory training and, board priorities. But we do have one day every year that's set aside for DECEs. And we do receive some funding through the region of Waterloo because we're a licensed program to bring in speakers and host this day of learning. We usually secure a venue, and then bring in speakers. And we have about 600 DECEs attend for the full day.
Great. And we recall in the onset of full day kindergarten and this before and after school model, there was a lot of pushback from the community when you first decided to operate Seamless Day. What advice would you give a board just starting out?
I was probably the cause of most of the angst, so I'll jump in. I mean, at that point, it was. I think some of the major operators saw us as, they saw us trying to take away. It became a battle, a turf war, and it doesn't need to be that right now. Right now, it's about better efficiencies and who can do what easier. And so I think, having had a second chance at this again at Halton to do this without with a more less conflict, more seamless. I hate to overuse that word, but just to make sure, you do it in partnership with third-party operators, just around who's best able to deliver the service. And like I said, and Melissa will say, there's schools doing 0 to 4 within the same building as, and the boards are doing the before and after school age kids. So I just think at that point, there's a lot of legislation. There's a lot of upset about full day kindergarten being implemented, and the childcare sector was grieving the loss of that, and how important that was to their income structures, and how much money those before and after programs contributed to their bottom line, and they feared going bankrupt if they didn't have that. And there was just a lot of fear and upset through the implementation of full day kindergarten at the time. That's not there now. And I think there's greater understanding. For example, in Waterloo, all of the operators are still viable. They're doing probably a more focused job on infant, preschool, toddlers, and the boards, taking over the school age kids. And I just think it's a better, more efficient partnership rather than multiple people competing for ECEs, offering competing programs for similar age kids. Nobody can even begin to do that anyway. And I think a lot of operators see the frustrations in daily trying to operate with the split shift staffing model. They view it as next to impossible now. So I think really it was quite contentious back in 2010 to 2012. That landscape has really shifted now. And I think in any cases, partnerships with the region, they're a great go-between between childcare operators and school boards. Your CMSMs are crucial. And so having done this again recently in Halton, centering our CMSM, the region of Halton, with the local operators and sitting down and just saying, okay, what are your stresses? Here's ours. We did it the other way. do you want us to take over any programs? Where are you suffering? And, they said, okay, if you could take 8 or 9 sites, we would be grateful for that. And that's even with some of the local YMCAs and even the big operators, because they simply could not continue to operate. So the times they have changed, and I think it's just a lot easier to have those discussions. And to be honest, meeting with all those partners was brand new back then. We never did it back in 2010. Yeah, a school board didn't even know what a CMSM was, let alone sit down and meet with them regularly. So now it's just a regular part of our structures. So a lot has changed for the better there. And when you look in the rear view mirror, you realize that, and it's much easier, I think, to have that regional discussion about who's best positions to deliver what here. And like I said, 10, 15 years on, my second time at implementing went a lot more smoothly than the first time. Although, the first time it certainly got through. I think the structures and the rationale was so strong, despite the conflicts, that the Waterloo program still stands as a lighthouse program.
Related to your question, to your comment there, Scott, is that you talked about how many of your programs took over programs that were not viable. So essentially holding on to spaces or saving spaces from dissolving. Have you been able to add spaces aside from the ones that you have taken over? And also, could you speak a little bit about supporting children with disabilities? We know that from the work that we've done, many programs have had to turn away children with disabilities. Can you speak a little bit about inclusion as well?
Yeah, I mean, I'll speak generally. Structurally, Melissa can add as well. I think part of a board running from an accessibility point of view is we're very well positioned to do that. We have already, with the students in our school, we're already putting strategies and approaches and meeting with parents already around the students' needs in the school day. So to extend that into a before and after program is a logical discussion. We use our own staff, our educational assistants, as a second staff who are already used to providing accommodations and roll up their sleeves and working with kids on strategies that we want, whether before and after program or in the middle of the kindergarten day. So it's a logical extension. It's still challenging work, it always is, but we're very well positioned to deliver on that quite well. And so most kids, if all kids, are able to be accommodated within the programs in board run programs. And from that perspective, I think because we have a good staff model and good structures in place, just around problem solving, awareness around special education issues. We have behavioral consultants that can be called in. There's huge structures within a board, and there's nothing to say we can't call on them, whether it's an extended day issue or a core day issue. Oftentimes if it's a problem at 8 a.m, it's a problem at 2:30, So we're very well positioned to do that. It's still challenging work, but we're well positioned to support the kids as well as, certainly as well as anyone can. Melissa may wish to add there.
I can share, we're fully integrated now. We have access to all of the systems that our colleagues in special education use, so that right in the child's individual plan of care, there's now an extended day section where I have access to go into that document and add strategies and supports for extended day. And I have the opportunity to work closely with our consultants over in special education to support children in the program. So our programs are inclusive, and we're fully integrated with the school day. So we have access to spaces in the school, sensory rooms, supports, equipment that are used to support the child during the day. That just extends to the after school program. And so I do think that that's a benefit for board operated programs, in that we can leverage a lot of the resources that the schools have. And in terms of the earlier questions around the history with childcare providers, I agree with Scott. We are in a much different place today and work very collaboratively with our partners to say, you know, focus on the school board's focusing on the school age care, and then our providers are offering the 0 to 4 care. And when I look back at 2010, the system was, you know, very fragmented. We had this patchwork of programs operating in different schools, different hours, operating on different dates, different parent policies. And today we're very aligned. So in 2019, we created an agreement with providers who want to deliver childcare services in schools, and they had to meet these terms and conditions. There was guidelines for inclusion and accessibility, operating hours, operating dates, so that if you were a parent in Waterloo Region and you needed care, there would be these standard service guidelines that we would all meet. And so I think through that process, some operators determined they were going to shift their, you know, business model to focus on the 0 to 4 because they couldn't provide that service. And then the board stepped in and provided that service. So it also provides a more consistent service across schools in our region.
Thank you, Melissa. And there's a question from Sarah Whiteford. Sarah, do you want to just open your mic and ask the question?
Sure. Hi, my name is Sarah Whiteford. I'm with the ministry in province of Manitoba. So thank you very much for sharing. I think it's me and probably a whole host of folks from our team who've been peppering you with very, you know, pointed questions. I'm curious though to understand how the Seamless Day Kindergarten intersects within this larger suite of care that you're talking about. And in particular, like, is it the case that in your schools, there is some sort of guarantee of before and after care starting in grade 1, like after that Seamless Day year? And if there isn't, what happens to those families who, you know, had access to Seamless Day Kindergarten? Like, what happens to them in grade 1 with their before and after care?
So I can answer that. All of our schools offer before and after care from JK all the way to grade 6. So we opened it up in 2017. It used to operate for JK to grade 2. And then we received, you know, requests from parents. They still need care for their child in grade 3. And so we opened up the age range. So every school has the program. We don't determine viability year over year. We now just open registration, and parents who need care can just register online. And every program goes from JK to grade 6. Now that we're licensed, the demand has increased substantially. And so we do have schools that have waiting lists. And this is the first time we've ever seen wait lists for extended day programs. And then we have to manage those wait lists. So that's a reality that's new for us.
And so just in the older years, is it still a similar model with early childhood educators who run those programs, similar hours, and the parents pay a fee? Like,
correct.
Okay.
So the program operates out of a fully equipped kindergarten room, but part of our fee includes funds to purchase resources for school-age children. So programs have lots of storage and cooperative games for children, you know, 8 to 12 years old. And so that's something the ministry has commented on as well when they come out to do their licensing inspections. Just they're impressed with the age appropriateness of the programming and the way the older children are leaders and helping some of the younger children. And in our large programs, the educators will set the groups so that there's a JK to 2 program and then a grade 3 to grade 6 program. And they involve the older children with the program planning and review of purchasing materials. So we do have to supplement the materials so that there is enough variety for older children. But that works well. But it's always the DECEs that deliver the program. And then we provide training for DECEs on school age programming and working with older children in before and after school programs.
I would say those are the rules we have to work in, for a licensed program here in Ontario. I know other jurisdictions have looked at having for older kids, especially with the demands for ECEs and the workforce being so pinched, looking at recreational designations. I mean, we're not really given a choice to run, before we were licensed, we had a bit of a choice where you could use, someone with a high five training or designations way back. So, I mean, there are, if you're building this from scratch in a different province and regulations could be looked at, there may be ways to safeguard ECEs for the younger kids and to look for alternate staff for some of the older grade 3 and up, for example, or something of that nature. I mean, our numbers are certainly much bigger for the younger kids, but it's parents who are choosing to opt out as the kids age up rather than us saying there's no program. So, but that's where I'd say to Manitoba, if you wanted to get creative, I'm sure the ECE shortages are just as profound there as they are here. So, yeah, there's always opportunities to get creative, and we're kind of locked into that licensed model with ECEs, but I know other areas look at different hiring formulas.
Another question here is, does the CMSM, and for those that are out of province, CMSM are the service system managers in Ontario. There's 47 regional service system managers, or DSABs as we call them, and early education goes through these 47 regional governments. So for those that are out of province, question is, does the service system manager contribute to the cost of providing inclusion support outside of those regular school hours?
So the CMSM doesn't provide funding for support, enhanced staff or support for children with special needs. It is a portion of our cost that's built into the parent fee. So I know in the past for licensed childcare programs here in Waterloo Region, there was special needs resource funding available to licensed programs if they needed enhanced staff. And so we don't access that funding, but there is a portion of our parent fee that goes to support children with special needs.
Similar to a school board building in budgeting for special education students, we in a smaller micro way, we've built that into the cost of operating the program, the before and after school programs, just as Melissa said. So we address it that way. It's not every student makes their own case to advocate for funding. We try to build a base to draw in. Knowing that the students are out there without us having to wait and react.
One question that's come in is around, so you take over those that are not viable. Is it a seamless takeover? Is there any point where the program has to close and then you reopen? So are parents kind of shuffling around in the interim as you take over a not viable before and after school? And how significant is the problem in Waterloo? Are before and after schools still closing, or have you kind of reached a plateau?
So I can answer that. We work closely with our childcare providers when they reach out and tell us that a program is no longer viable, so that we can align our programs opening so there is no gap in service for families. That's really important. We know that that would be devastating for families. And so in every case where we've stepped in to run the program, we do ask that operators let us know by April, it's actually this Friday, April 11th, whether or not programs will be viable for September. And we always let them know that if they inform us outside of that timeline that a program is not viable, it's very difficult for us to align opening a program because it falls outside of our staffing timelines. So we need to know early on in April if they're going to run for September. Don't come to us in August and tell us the program that was viable is no longer going to run. That's really difficult for us to pull together, and then it will impact families. So our providers have been really good about understanding those timelines, and then we just work with them. We have a collaborative communication that we use so that when families are informed the program is closing, they're also informed at the same time the board will offer the program, so there's no panic there. And that's, it's been a very collaborative process. It is still a trend that we're seeing. As I mentioned, we took over 6 programs this school year. And 11, I believe, the year before. So we used to, Scott might know this more, but we used to operate 50-50. It was like we ran 50%. For a long time, it was kind of split down the middle. Half of our schools were third-party run and half were board run. But I'd say in the last 5 years, it's moving to now we have 17 that are third-party and the rest are all board run.
And are the fees comparable to those of community providers?
They are. A lot of our providers charge, they have to be comparable. So we built that into the agreement that I was referring to earlier, where we came up with these standard services that we wanted for families. A comparable rate was one of the things that we listed. And some providers offer a different rate for PD days if they offer additional services like a hot lunch or something like that. But the before and after rates are comparable.
Just looking at here, can you speak to the benefits that you've seen for children? Any specific anecdotes or overall findings of benefits for children in this model?
I would say children, because they're familiar with the space, they're familiar with the school and the educators, they really benefit from the school board running the program, and all of our policies are the same. It's not a separate set of rules that they have to follow during the day and then go to a provider and have a different set of rules for the playground after school. The rules are seamless. The environment is familiar. The educators are familiar. And there is a fully integrated collaborative approach with the educator teams that we don't always see when you have different organizations working together in the same space. So there isn't a lot of conflict over shared space and shared materials. There's a lot of collaboration. And so the children benefit from those strong relationships as well. Educator working conditions are children's learning conditions. So we're seeing that children are really benefiting from all of these pieces, and entering the programs easily, and they don't want to leave at the end of the day, and we receive positive feedback from families, from licensing. It's just overall a great model.
Yeah, the biggest win too is sometimes the stresses we didn't see, and it was all the off-site childcare where kids were with us for a little bit, going to a more coming from a morning provider, bringing them to the school, and then maybe going to a different after-school provider who would pick them up, and just the shuttling between. And that was really, in the majority of our schools, did not have before and after school programs before this. The vast majority, especially in our urban core. You could circle, every community with a needs profile did not have before and after school programs. And so that's what was happening. It was all after Margaret, a lot of neighborhood care, basement, in the basement of some people's homes, or unlicensed settings, very informal childcare arrangements. And so for parents just to know it's one stop, drop and pick off at one location is incredibly valuable when you talk to those parents. And the kids won't necessarily verbalize it because they don't know, but they come in calm and they leave pretty calm. And it's just, they're more settled. When the bells are ringing, transitions are hard enough, but it really works very well. The handoff is great. The communication is better for families and kids. And I just think all in, Charles Pascal was a very smart guy. When he wrote that report, I don't know if we were fully ready for it when he wrote that report way back, but he was right. And, time is, if he could see these programs now, he's passed on, but if he could see them, I think he'd be really pleased. And, if there's an ability for a second push for people to see the stresses that, are still out there now in many school boards in Ontario who are trying to run really broken third-party programs, in my opinion, it's well time for boards to take a good hard look at this. And Melissa gets calls all the time from other school boards kicking tires, saying, I think we need to do this, because they're right. They need to do this. It's better for kids. It's better for families. You know what? And I would suggest it's better for schools. Seems like more work, but the schools that have these programs really, really value them. I think people thought schools would plug their nose and kick and scream implementing them, but that's not been our case. They embrace them. They get it. They know it's better for kids.
Would you care to speculate why more school boards aren't doing this?
It's finance departments. We're like anyone, we're averse to risk. It seems like they don't have the money, the staffing. To be honest, if you don't have, you've got to be willing to build it on an ethic. Everyone feels overworked. And it just feels like one more thing. And to be honest, they just don't feel that they can to do it. They feel it's a workload thing. It feels overwhelming. But when people ask and do sessions like this and attend and see it's workable, there's support out there. There's people you can call now. Like it's not a concept. It's an actual thing now, and it's easy to replicate. It takes work, but you know what? The programs pay for themselves. They build, and I've gone through this and had to advocate for this when I was in my last years in Halton, convincing as well. And it helps to have, someone at a senior table. When I was the superintendent, it's certainly easier to arm twist. But parents without care are fairly invisible, right? Waiting lists are fairly invisible. When a school secretary tells a parent, sorry, there's no room, it's a waiting list, we can't take you, or we don't have a program, nobody pressures, right? So it's not a big lobby unless it kind of comes legislatively, unless, to be honest, Waterloo's not doing this, right? Unless the province put a requirement in place to offer these programs, they can. But with third parties struggling as they are now, the time is upon us again for boards to look at this, and I think more and more are. I think there's at least 10 or 12 now, maybe looking or have moved in this direction. Like I said, Halton School Board is one that has recently done that in small ways. We're taking a very incremental approach each year and saying to the providers, how good are we now? How good? We're not grabbing and taking over. We're saying we're here to support. But don't tell us mid-year, like Melissa said. We need to know this spring for September, and then we can put a program in place. So it's happening more and more, but school boards are pretty risk-averse organizations, and it feels like a big bite to take on.
We know that from what we have seen in the numbers, Waterloo has opened 75 before and after school programs since 2021. You talked about, Melissa, that there was 17 community providers. Can you just give a proportionally speaking, out of how many schools does it run in, and what is the proportion of that to all before and after schools, and how many administrative positions support this work?
So we have opened 75 before and after school programs since 2010. Sorry, not 2021. It's been since 2010. So we've had, 15 years to do this work, and we started small, and I would recommend starting small with a pilot for sure. So 17 schools are run by third-party providers, and then 75 are run by the school board, and that's the total of our board. I don't know what's that math? 17
But
plus
also the Catholic School Board also has operates as you do.
yeah.
And they are, I believe, are 39 programs. So in total, there's more
Yeah,
than
I don't know how many of their sites are third party. They also have some third party run programs, but they operate between 39 and 44. It changes each year. And then administratively, I have a central team here, and we have, as I mentioned earlier, two schedulers, 10 supervisors, and I now have a full-time staffing supervisor who basically does all of our hiring, occasional hiring, job fairs, EA interviews for the board. So a lot of administrative support. So each team of 2 supervisors supports a cluster of around 15 to 18 schools, depending on the enrollment. And those are their schools, and they work together, as I said, AM and PM, supporting programs, supporting teams and principals. And that model has worked really well. I have an org chart that I can share that outlines each position, what their responsibilities are. Some school boards have found that helpful when I've shared that.
And though all those positions are paid for out of the parent fee. It's a portion. There's a formula that produces the fee annually, and that produces adequate supervision again. So no, this isn't coming out of base funding to run schools. This program floats itself.
right. And yes, Melissa, if you can share that with me, then I can definitely circulate it to the registrants today.
Okay, great.
Another question is, what are next steps for Waterloo and Halton? Are you continuing to move into expanding the model? Are there any other things out on the horizon for Waterloo Seamless Day and Halton Seamless Day?
We are really digging into our waitlist numbers. This is, as I mentioned, a new piece for us, and with 300 families sitting on the wait list across several schools, we are focusing our efforts on hiring and getting out there and revising our hiring practices so that we can look at expanding spaces in existing sites, because we've paused our enrollment this year with our 6 new locations. We didn't feel like it was a good time for us to expand our current business. And so we are hearing from families at locations where there's long wait lists that they really need us to grow our program. So I would say that's the next step for us, is taking a look at our wait list and looking at where we can grow programs.
And a question is around curriculum. Is there a curriculum for the before and after school component?
So our program uses How Does Learning Happen, Ontario's pedagogy for the early years, and I can share that link for the participants to Amis if needed. So our program is play-based, and that's what we use.
Thank you.
Which is what makes the kindergarten room and the materials within the room so essential for a quality program. Like everything's there ready to go. And we're not dual resourcing or bringing the big bin,
The cart with
on wheels out for the kids to touch, and all the curtains that the teachers used to put up to cover everything, and all of those shenanigans are gone. They have access to the full supplies.
We know that when full day kindergarten rolled out, there was some tension between the EC and the teachers in the room. How has the full day model supported that collaboration piece between ECs and teachers?
I think we've come a long way, Scott. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I mean, we there's a lot of professional development. I mean, many of the teams now, at inception, every single ECE was new all at the same time. And so we had to do a lot of work on intentional work on building partnership, role clarification. We gave it a lot of supports and how to plan, who does, real tangible supports on, what does, we're also tackling what does play-based learning look like all at the same time, right? We just through constant professional development and pulling together of staff and all of them together, teachers and ECs to build the roles. I think a lot of that has gone away. I mean, any conflicts now would be more personality, more than pedagogy or ambiguity over roles. I think there's a more calmness around that. I mean, anytime you bring two people together, there can be some of this. You can bring two teachers together, and so I think it's more reduced to that. I think most people in the full day kindergarten classroom really know their roles. Of course, in the extended day, it is the ECEs. There's no issue there. So we've really done a lot to build that awareness. Having ATFO locally in Waterloo represented teachers and ECEs, so they're quite involved as well and really invested in growing that. And is really refreshing to have that. They're separate locals, but they've always taken a really good, strong partnership. ATFO, even at inception, put out some really good documents and things. So that was a real positive for us to have the union pulling for the program and not advocating one side or the other, but trying to come up the middle and take a real support model. When I look back, I think that was great. And that's still there to this day. I think people just feel it's good. And now we have ECEs, new kindergarten teachers are coming in where the ECE's been there 10 years. And the ECEs oriented welcoming to the school. So it's so in place across the province now that there isn't a normal footprint anymore. Like I said, ECEs have now been in schools upwards of 15 years and I feel like they're like just as part of the staff as anyone else. We used to have to preach, don't forget the principals, put their names on the door, make them feel welcome. Like that's just seems so second nature now. Of course, they're members of our staff. Of course, they're going to be invited to interviews. Like all the protocols have been worked out. And so I think the partnership is viable. I think if you tried to take it away from a school now and fold full day kindergarten staff the model to where it is, I think you'd have a riot on your hands from everybody, most importantly from parents, because I think this polls very well. I saw results that it's up really high in terms of favorability for how well received the kindergarten programs are. So to me, for a large scale implementation, it's gone about as well as it could. I think, given all the complexities in education, it's gone quite well.
Thank you. And I think that's really important for those on this call that are, thinking about potentially implementing some version of this model, that sometimes the beginning is bumpy, right? The road is bumpy. And we know that it has been bumpy in Ontario, both with full day kindergarten, but also the seamless day. But now, so many years out, it is a valued part of the education system in Waterloo, and that these bumps are going to smoothen out as implementation rolls out. So that's very helpful. Another question is, has the play-based learning in the full day kindergarten influenced pedagogy in later grades? Have you seen any kind of trickling up of play-based?
I have. I've been in thousands of classrooms in several school boards. You see it in the materials. And in the pedagogy, you see very little, far less whole group instruction, more active, hands-on, better use of materials, better selection of materials, rotating in new materials, like even in grade 1 and 2 classrooms, better communication for teen K and 1 teachers, and grade 1 teachers taking in kids with an expectation to continue some of the pedagogies. And boards, I know We did as well. You work with the grade 1 teachers and grade 2 teachers on that. So absolutely 100%. I've seen, it's the older teachers now getting ready. It's not, for kindergarten kids rather than the other way. You kids better get ready for grade 1. I do see it, and you see it, and you can just tell physically walking in a grade 1 classroom, it looks different than it did 20 years ago. And I would say even in grade 2, I would say right up till grade 2 and 3. I mean, there's exceptions, and they stand out, just from the use of getting rid of the colors and using a bit more muted tones, and like you just see it everywhere. I think it's really had a positive spillover.
Thank you.
Melissa would probably see the same thing too.
We're not in a lot of classrooms that aren't kindergarten, but since our programs run, but I agree with Scott, just walking through the halls and, working with my colleagues and learning support services, hearing some of the things they're working on. Yeah, and seeing the way the desks are structured together in groups, and even the furniture, the types of furniture that we're buying now, it looks totally different.
Wonderful, thank you. There's no more questions that have come in. Are there any final thoughts?
I would just say, I just recently retired in the last year, from my time in Waterloo and my last while in Halton, and it's still exciting to talk about this. It's still a passion. I feel it's so important and so worthwhile that, I would just say, reach out and call me. If anyone here has lingering questions, doubts, or concerns, get my email, give me a call. I'll fly to Manitoba anytime.
Thank you so much, and heartfelt thank you to our incredible speakers, Scott and Melissa, for sharing your time, your insights, your experiences and expertise with us today. Your leadership and dedication in creating high quality, inclusive early learning is truly inspiring. You are both a wealth of knowledge. Thank you for advancing this important work and helping us imagine what a truly seamless day looks like for children and families. So thank you very much. And thank you for offering your contact information for our participants today. We do have those from all over Ontario, but also from Manitoba and Newfoundland. So thank you very much for sharing your time with us today.